Hey, welcome back to Set Roulette, hosted by the Mythic Society. I am Conanhawk, aka Eric Hawkins, and as you can see, Caroline Kavanaugh is not here with me. Instead, we have Carlin Smith, aka Sidetrak. How you doing? Oh, we have a little bit of technical difficulty. Let's get Sidetrak in here real quick. All right, looks like Carlin is going to be right back, unfortunately. Having a little bit of mic issue here.
What about now?
There we go. We can hear you.
My Skype just keeps turning its own mic off after like an hour. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, it's really very weird.
Okay, perfect.
So, welcome. I know that you've done some CFB coverage for us before, or previously. But are you excited to make your Mythic Society debut?
Yes, I'm very excited. Set Roulette, it looks awesome. I'm just excited to see Skullclamp as a 4-of. Which is me. I want to see Skullclamp advantage. I like the broken stuff. I like to, only for a day or two. Not like, the history of the format or anything, but it's always fun to see, mess around with the broken stuff for a little bit, see why it's banned.
Yeah, like I think if you've never played any of these before and you're watching at home, one of the greatest things I think for me personally is this feels like whenever you get like a new set of standard, right? It's like that honeymoon phase that they always talk about where you just get to like throw all the cards together and just like brew something crazy and busted. And maybe you do break it, and maybe like, Skullclamp or Mana Drain kind of breaks it, or, Mind Twist or whatever. But then you don't ever have to really play it again, right? You just get to do something really cool for a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's great. That is.
Okay, so it looks like this round we're going to be covering Jim Davis, former now SCG grinder, awesome guy, and it looks like he has come with a different version of Bug Clamp. Anything very interesting that sticks out to you here?
Let's see. Let's pull up the list. So he's playing Bug Clamp instead, which is interesting. Mind Twist is everybody just on the Mind Twist plan because it is that good?
I think so. I mean, Mind Twist is, if you've ever played like the cube on MTGO or anything like that, Mind Twist is like a slam dunk every time you're cubing. Like making your opponent discard random cards, and like if you just like, it's like always like when you play cubes in person too, your opponent goes cards in hand, you're like, you're the person that got that Mind Twisted, I'm just gonna discard my hand, right? That's just like what's happening here.
I will say he has one spicy Obnixilis Reignited, which might be, maybe that's to fight off the other Mind Twist decks, get a little bit of card advantage.
Yeah,
but
I can definitely
Skullclamp does a good job of that as well. But you have to assume people are bringing in, there's a lot of Trigon Predator running around, so you have to assume your first Skullclamp's not going to make it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. One of the things that actually jumps out to me right away is that he's playing 3 Old Man main, which, maybe is a nod to the other Skullclamp decks?
I think so. It's just that you're hedging your bets because people are going to play Skullclamp and have little creatures that you can just take.
Yeah. Take them and throw them on your clamp, and then take another one the next turn.
Exactly. Yeah, that's considered strong. Stealing your opponent's creature and then drawing 2 cards and then repeating said process.
Yeah. The sideboard is kind of one that I would expect to see in a format that hasn't really been defined. It's if you take a look at the sideboard here, there's 9 1-ofs and 3 2-ofs.
If you don't know what to do, do it all.
Yeah, that is fair. I'm very excited to see Jim this round. I'm clicking on the pairings to see exactly what he's up against. Let's see. Looks like he is playing against it's a person that we just like saw last round, which is DrMaD, which their deck is called Deckless Base.
It is a blue-white control. Funny names. Some people just put Deckless.
Yeah. They are playing blue-white control, so it should be interesting to see. We saw that they finished off, I think it was DC last round, who was on a similar deck to Jim's, but the just like powerful cards like Gideon and stuff like that. But maybe some of the changes that Jim has made just being a little bit more creature based, having maybe like a better earlier start maybe can get around what DeckList is doing, or what DrMaD is doing here.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, looks like we are getting set to switch over to Jim Davis. I'm very excited to see this here. Let's see. Sorry, just like making sure that I can view what's going on Jim's stream here. There we go. Do you foresee any interesting things out of maybe after DrMaD's list here that might throw some wrenches in what Jim wants to do?
Yeah, let's pull up DrMaD's list as well. What is he on?
He's on the blue-white control.
He's just on blue-white control. Mm-hmm. That seems fairly strong. I mean, Mana Drain is a very good card. Yeah. You know, you could consider it, but Absorb it's crazy. Absorb is in standard right now too, and we're seeing it in our set roulette. It's good enough to see play. Quarantine Field is kind of interesting. This is his control list is pretty different from a lot of the other lists that we've been seeing. He's just trying to go the Mana Drain, no Skull Clamp, no broken. No real broken cards. I mean, I guess you could say Mana Drain's busted because it is, but like, do you think Factor Fiction is pretty fair, or is it just like people remembered how bad it was when you got EOT Factor Fictioned?
I think Factor Fiction is a very powerful card. It does really depend on how powerful the cards are. Looks like we're here. Looks like Jim Davis is casting a Catacomb Sifter off of a turn 1 Elves of Deep Shadow, which immediately gets mana drained by DrMaD, which is just something very scary. Like this turn, they have access to, well, the card that you were just talking about, Factor Fiction, thanks to the power of Mana Drain. Looks like we have our Factor Fiction piles of Island, Hallowed Fountain, another Factor Fiction, Absorb, and the card I was finishing the last round with Caracas, which is obviously a little less good against Jim. Not a lot of legends there, but you know, it's just a white man otherwise. How do you like this split, or how would you set up this split?
I'm looking for the shared screen right now. So
that's fair.
You have to give me 1 second. I'll just pull up Jim's stream for now.
Yeah, it looks like Jim has decided to put lands versus spells. I don't know if this is final or not. Yep, it says waiting for DrMaD to choose a pile. Jim just like hedging that DrMaD doesn't have a lot of mana. Obviously, giving him 2 spells is very scary. But if they are light on mana, they're going to take the mana side. And if they're light on, if they have a bunch of lands, they're going to take the spell side. But if you do a split on both, right, then you get the worst of both worlds, I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got the classic Trigon Predator. I think everybody just hedged their bets because you see Skull Clamp and you know everybody's going to play it because why not? So you might as well pre-board. A couple people had an extra one in the side.
Makes sense.
But I really do like 3 Visits. That's actually one of my favorite Magic cards. It's just a ramp spell, but I just think it's just it's like the art is interesting and like the name. I've always really enjoyed it. It's like played in Commander, because of just take any ramp spell you can get.
Yeah. Well, it also like having it so that it finds any forest. You can find Breeding Pool or Bayou,
that's huge.
Island.
It's not a basic, which is a big deal because you get to play duels and shocks in this one.
Yeah. So it looks like Jim here is debating between a few cards. Obviously, having 3 Visits and Sword of Fire and Ice as the spells available. Decides to move into combat here without deploying the Sword of Fire and Ice, respecting the counter magic from DrMaD.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got some damage on board and you don't really need to do anything, kind of force the issue. I mean, you could always just play 3 Visits. It's good. It's solid. You you basically know that. Okay, just gonna absorb the 3 Visits. I mean, you basically know your Sword of Fire and Ice is never resolving. So
yeah,
you might as well try to ramp and try to double spell if you can next turn.
Makes sense. If you're in Jim's seat here, obviously you want to get the Sword of Fire and Ice into play. Are you just waiting for DrMaD maybe to tap low? Are you just or are you just like you said, you're trying to just double spell?
Yeah, I think you have to double spell because I mean you're playing around Absorb and Mana Drain, as well as Scatter the Winds and even Force Spike, really, which is you've got there's quite a bit of counter magic. So I guess you could either try to double spell or just keep pushing damage and then wait. Like maybe you can get enough damage in. Absorb kind of makes it hard though.
Yeah.
Because you take back all that damage that you just did when you get your one spell absorbed. Because Jim only has 3 power on board.
Yeah. I think one of the other hard things is there's a card called Rout. For those that are not familiar, it is white and 3 generic, and then you can cast Rout as though it had flash. If you pay 2 more mana, and it's destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. So there's a little bit pressure too, which is something that I'm like a little wary of because like we're getting really close to being able to just like take the 3 end of your turn Rout and then just hold them in counter magic forever, right?
Yeah, which is awful. That's instant speed board wipe is great. I mean, Rout is just a fairly solid card as far as board wipes go.
Oh yeah. All right, we're seeing a quarantine field from DrMaD here, taking out the Trigon Predator so it doesn't get killed by the Trigon Predator. And Jim's down to just 1 damage a turn.
So this is interesting in the fact that Jim can just run out the sword and hope there's no mana drain.
Yeah.
I don't hate that, but I don't really love it either. Yeah, and it was mana drain.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like what we were kind of like talking about earlier. It's like you're gonna have to get to the point where you can double spell, and the unfortunate thing is that the follow up is Pataglia Viper, which is going to produce 4 power, 3 creatures. But it doesn't really look all that threatening with DrMaD untapping with 9 mana, 10 if they hit a land drop, and then also 16 life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you probably want to run out the Viper first and then try to stick the sword. To be honest,
yeah, I could see that.
The sword is gonna get you a lot farther than because you're more susceptible to another board wipe now, or a quarantine field or something.
Yeah. Well, DrMaD seems to have a lot of options with this 3 mana. They're hanging out on their turn. Oof, this looks like a really, really big quarantine field. There's only 1 left in the list, but this looks like it might be a quarantine for everything.
Yeah, and the other issue is Jim only has 1 Sword of Fire and Ice, right? So if you can get that to stick, or at least have it around, you always, if you can attack with it, you can get some form of card advantage by drawing an extra card, putting more pressure on the board. So the pressure is if you put on with the Viper, you have basically the same. You're 1 less. You actually have 1 more damage if you equip that Sword of Fire and Ice to the elves than the power that the Viper put on the field. So I probably would have just baited with the Viper, and if it resolves, then great.
Yeah, then you don't have to deploy the sword, right?
But, yeah, you can wait. But basically, if you only have 1 sword, you just want to kind of find the section when you can resolve it, which is definitely hard because this deck besides Gideon and a Pristine Angel, it doesn't really ever tap out.
Yeah. So Jim getting in a little bit of damage, had a couple of big pickups last turn with Culling Oracle into Catacomb Sifter, allowing him to get 4 power on board, but the cards just keep coming for DrMaD here. Pulse of the Grid at end of turn is going to draw them 2 cards that will discard a Force Spike, and we're back up to 4 cards. Another opt for a little bit of card selection. Just like cycling through the deck is pretty quickly here, and if they can find something like you said, like Pristine Angel or the Gideon, Jim's threats get kind of mopey pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then the thing is, he doesn't really. I mean, obviously the one you're hoping to just be able to draw a Skull Clamp and resolve it, but it is just hard.
Yeah,
Mind
Mind Twist
Twist.
is a pretty good pickup.
Excuse me. Yeah, Mind Twist. I mean, it's always a good pickup. Well, there's time. Well, the thing is, normally that's not always true, but like these, everybody's decks are filled with card advantage, so your hand's almost never going to be empty.
Yeah. Looks like our Catacomb Sifter hits a Condemn. Jim elects not to scry with the Eldrazi Scion, electing to keep the 1 damage on board. And from the looks of it, we're going to see a post-combat Mind Twist and hope to not hit another Mana Drain. I think that would be the third one out of DrMaD here.
Yeah, well, Mad does have a lot of card selection, which is exactly what you want in the blue-white deck. Sometimes it feels like blue-white is just like it's always been fairly good, but then you get to have Mana Drain, so you get to air quotes accelerate as well, which is pretty stellar. Like you getting to almost be ahead on mana to play maybe your Gideon and get to hold up counter magic, or play your Pristine Angel and hold up counter magic.
Well, the funny thing is like when they printed Mana Drain, it like sometimes it was like a negative thing, right? Like you would like Mana Drain a big spell, and then you're like, how are you going to use that 7 mana, right? Otherwise you'll take Mana Burn. Obviously that doesn't exist in Magic anymore.
Yeah, that is true. The Mana Burn is gone, which that was a slight issue at one point. But now it's game's a lot different. No more damage on the stack, or all those boomer rules.
Yeah. Oof. All right. Scatter to the Winds with Awaken is going to make that Plains into a 3/3. So not only countering the Mind Twist, but also making a creature.
Awaken is such a cool mechanic. I would love to see it come back. Just having extra utility on your spells is always good.
Yeah. For the longest time, they've been trying to make a card like Cancel be just like, give it like a little extra abilities to make it pretty solid. And I think Scatter to the Winds is a pretty good one, where it's like you draw it early, it's Cancel, which is kind of a bad counter spell. But if you draw it late, it just makes a 3/3 and is a counter spell, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, exactly. It's and there's we've seen a couple other Awaken cards as well.
Yeah.
Looks like we have a split here. Yeah.
Yeah. This one is it's getting, every time you see the Fact or Fiction, you were asking earlier how great is Fact or Fiction. Obviously they're not as powerful as like you see like in Vintage. The cards aren't as powerful as Vintage, without like seeing like a Mana Drain or something. But even this, like, just like you have the choice of a removal spell and a draw spell, or a counter spell and 2 lands. So it's just crazy.
I think that's why people like Atris so much, is they just remember Fact or Fiction. And then Atris is a miniature. It's like a mind game, Fact or Fiction, because it's good. I definitely enjoy. I love to see the splits. It's always interesting, the mind games.
Yeah. I think Jim making the correct split there a little bit. I like the split there. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it, but basically just like making it so that you want the absorb less. I feel like he's going to need something, like you said earlier, like a Skull Clamp to get back into this. So like giving them, like leaving them without a counterspell gives you at least a little bit of hope of landing something like that. Is that maybe why you think that he split it that way?
Yeah, I 100% agree. You're gonna have to resolve something at some point, because Jim's deck can't beat this 3/3.
Yeah, I suppose not a lot of ways to kill it. Not a lot of creatures that are bigger than it. That's for sure. Oh.
Okay, well now, that's a fairly solid.
Yeah, for those that didn't get to play against Gideon, ally of Zendikar, it is a ridiculously powerful planeswalker, and unfortunately pumps out 2/2 allied night tokens, which are, like, again, once we were saying, the 3/3 is a problem, a 2/2 is also a problem for Jim's deck.
Yeah. Gideon is great. I mean, you have a great uptick, and then if you can also just immediately Anthem, if you really want to, or you can make dudes. So I mean, get Ally of Zendikar for 4 mana. It's really solid. Like, it has 3. Everything it does is relevant.
And I think this is the last Fact or Fiction, but it also might just be a little bit of overkill here.
Pristine Angel and a route. or scatter, and it's tough.
You know you love it when your opponent puts. I think that's going to be it for Jim, but his opponent puts Pristine Angel Route into the graveyard, and Jim gives it up.
And you're like, oh, the hand's that good, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so obviously things didn't go Jim's way that game. We're looking at him sideboarding here. What do you like out of Jim's sideboard, or maybe there's like a game plan that you possibly could take away from how Jim's going to approach the next game?
Yeah, well, it's tough. I mean, Jim has just a lot of 2-ofs and 1-ofs, so your chance of seeing it is also a little bit less. Obviously, the Old Man of the Sea doesn't seem very relevant, so we'll probably maybe see him take those out. The Plax Manta, I don't know if Shroud is going to be relevant either. Probably just going to bring in Disrupt and Dispel and the other sword. Just try to go heavier on threats.
Ooh, that is one of my favorite cards of all time. I saw the Nether Voids get selected up. And for those that haven't played against Nether Void, there's a lot of weird rules around it. But basically, it is a 4-mana enchantment that says whenever a player casts a spell, counter that spell unless its player pays 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
The awkward rules around it are it's a world enchantment, so there can only be 1 world enchantment in play at one time. So it's like super legendary.
Yeah, it's double legendary. I love Nether Void too. I mean, could see Jim bringing it in because why not? It's.
Yeah, I mean, if you could stick to like a few creatures, right? You can go like Elves of Deep Shadow into Catacomb Sifter and then just stick Nether Void. Something like DrMaD's deck doesn't really play anything very cheap. So like your routes cost, at sorcery speed cost 8. Your Gideon Ellis Zendikar costs 7. So it's going to be very tough for them to get out just from that 3 damage, right? If you're able to do that.
Exactly.
Or 4 damage, I guess.
And Jim's just going to take out all the ramp, which I mean. It's interesting because do you want to accelerate so you could get ahead and play Nether Void, or do you just assume the game is going to go long and you don't want any dead draws?
Yeah, I think the 3 visits being taken out definitely leans that way where you're just like thinking the game's going to be a little shorter. You have to get ahead on board quick. The Old Man of the Seas are interesting, like they're staying in. Looking at DrMaD sideboard, they have Old Man of the Sea themselves. They also have Grand Arbiter the 4th. So perhaps Jim is just, knowing that DrMaD has a high likelihood of boarding in Old Man of the Sea, is just going to steal Old Man of the Sea with Old Man of the Sea.
And yeah, I wonder when DrMaD brings in the always a favorite of mine, Memnarch.
Ooh.
Pretty spicy. Obviously, it's probably not great here because there's nothing good to steal, and Old Man does a better job with the power and toughness. But I just want to see Memnarch in play.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased. I always really enjoyed that card.
Yeah, it's a little more powerful on Commander. I remember playing some Memnarch where you get like some way to untap your mana, like Palinchron, and make infinite mana, and you're like, I'll just take everyone's permanence.
Yes, I did. I used to do that with Time Speaker Zagana combo. Just as
nice.
infinite mana, Memnarch, take everything. I believe Memnarch's wording is target permanent, so you can take land too.
Oh yeah. All right, so Jim doesn't start off with a mana creature, but the next best thing starts off with Skull Clamp, followed up by a Prairie Scream from DrMaD. Jim's got a pretty nice start here, though, with Colleen Oracle. I'm assuming he wants to hit a land with this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just being on the play with a clamp is a huge boon. It's just extremely strong.
Yeah. Jim faced with an interesting decision. Do you clamp the Colleen Oracle to get 2 cards, or do you keep the threat on board? It looks like he's deciding to do the clamp. I like that idea.
Yeah, I think you're worried about the disenchants, and you want to at least get something out of it. Because the DrMaD does have 3 disenchant in the side.
Makes a lot of sense.
And I would definitely, if you're worried about the advantage from Skull Clamp, probably bring in the disenchant.
Yeah. I could almost see a spot where you could play disenchant main in specifically this event.
Yes, probably it's pretty safe. Well, I think Trigon Predator is a boon to that, knowing that everybody. I think that it's a safe bet.
Yeah. So, Jim picks up a Bayou here, so he's faced with an interesting decision. He could just play Mind Twist. Obviously, there's some downside to that. You're not getting all your opponent's cards. They could have something like Mana Drain or something like that. The other question is if you go away from Mind Twist, are you casting, or which threat are you casting here?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could just run out the old man because it's not really. I mean, what is the old man doing?
Yeah,
You know, like, is it? What are you worried about stealing? Just the opponent's old man?
I believe that would be why it was put in, but here, I mean, like any creature, to be honest, just like wears a Skull Clamp or a Sword of Fire and Ice pretty well, right?
Yeah, it's something, right? We'll see opt. Might see Force Spike.
Oh, that's right. Force Spike is available, but is not used, or perhaps it's not in the hand for DrMaD here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is good. 2 Skull Clamp is. I mean, that's a lot of cards.
Yeah. And while we did see Jim take out 3 visits, you are seeing like a little bit of the ramp available via the creatures. So maybe that was like another thing, is like Jim taking out the 3 visits doesn't necessarily mean he won't be ahead on mana. It just means that he won't have just a card that's specifically designed to go get more mana.
Yeah. Yeah, Conanhawk was a pretty good card.
Yeah. One of the better Elvish Visionaries that were ever, like, Elvish Visionary types that were ever picked up.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Jim has a 3rd Skull Clamp, which means that he can kill these X3s and draw a lot of cards.
That's a lot of cards there, Eric. You love to see it. You love pure card advantage.
Yeah. So it's just going to be a big, beefy old man.
Yeah. Probably swing in for a little bit, then equip the other. I could just see that before that old man gets dealt with, because you actually don't have any other creatures, so you're probably pretty inclined to attack, and then, well, Jim could be playing around. I wonder if they have Condemn.
Oh, they do have Condemn available to them. Yeah, they have 3 Condemns here. That is something that is interesting to bring up, is like, you know, like the Skull Clamp only allows you to draw cards if the creature dies. So Condemn or something like Quarantine Field actually just like removes the creature from play, and you don't draw the cards off the Skull Clamp. So that is something interesting to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly have just taken the free draw 6.
Yeah.
Like, or, well, no, because it would have died. But I would have taken draw 4, because you're kind of actually at a weird spot where if you don't if you don't draw a creature, those Skull Clamps don't do anything.
That is very true. So here we get to see DrMaD's patented Mana Drain you for the X, or for the colorless cost on Fact or Fiction, 1 blue Fact or Fiction.
That's I would say that's strong. That's a 1. I would say that is very strong. Yeah, Mana Drain is just a. I love that card. I know it's busted, but it's so good.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like DrMaD puts Mana Drain, Pulse of the Grid, and Opt into the graveyard, choosing Gideon Ally Zendikar Absorb. So they still do have a counterspell, but maybe they're just looking for a threat. The discard to hand size Old Man of the Sea is interesting.
Yeah, I think you just are worried about it because like, you can't really ever play Old Man without it getting taken by Jim's Old Man first, right? There's not probably a window for that to happen.
Yeah. Well, the Skull Clamps actually increase Old Man's power, right? So it could take.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
you can take anything bigger, right? More. So like you can't take the Old Man with the Old Man. So I actually kind of like Jim's spot here, and I think that might be one of the reasons that the Gideon Ally Zendikar was taken. Is like there's not a lot of ways for DrMaD to block this Old Man of the Sea. So just like making a token with the Gideon might just be something that happens in a few turns here.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see Jim push the advantage with the Old Man, or I still think there's that weird risk of him not drawing another creature.
Yeah, or if you do draw another creature, it might just get countered, right? Like if you draw like something like another 3-mana creature, it just gets absorbed and you don't get to display another one, right?
Yeah, and you need to double spell. So I think we're definitely going to see Jim just cash in here for 6. That's pretty reasonable.
Reasonable is one way to describe drawing 6 cards, I suppose.
Yeah, it's one way. I mean, now Jim's hand is just stacked with. I mean, this is hard to deal with now, right? Because I think DrMaD missed a land drop, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he didn't.
I believe Jim hit an extra land with Coil and Oracle, which would have put them at 5 this turn, and then they should only be up 1 land. So yeah, I think DrMaD did miss a land drop. Yeah, I think you are correct there.
So being able to double spell is huge.
Yeah.
So I wonder
unfortunately,
what
all
Jim
of his stuff costs 3 though.
That's yeah. Right now, definitely that is a little bit awkward. But next turn, he'll have access to 6 mana, so he'll be able to double spell.
So the pickups for the Skullclamp draws were 2 recoils, 2 Catacomb Sifters, a Sword of Light and Shadow, and a Trigon Predator added to Breeding Pool Mind Twist. Which of these spells are you deploying this turn, knowing that there's an Absorb on the other side?
That's a good question, because he can't just sit, and recoil's not doing anything. You could just play Trigon Predator as, I don't know, your air quotes worst card here.
Yeah.
Because you have recoil for the Quarantine Field.
Yeah.
Like end of turn, do that. So I feel like Trigon Predator is not much of a threat. It's like I think it's your, I don't know, I wouldn't say worst card, but it's like the least. It doesn't have much utility here.
Yeah.
So you're okay with it getting hitting the bin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I liked the Trigon Predator, or possibly recoil. So one of the weird things that like the older cards did say was return target permanent. It usually doesn't have like the land restriction on the bounce, so you can actually recoil your opponent's land if you want.
Like, yeah, which is actually, if DrMaD is like, it looks like he made his land drop, but there's a world where you just end of turn recoil the lands.
Yeah. Notably, DrMaD did not deploy Gideon Ally of Zendikar, so, like kind of showing that they probably have more counter magic along with those 6 cards. But like you were saying, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just think you're not allowed to tap out right now. Your opponent has a ton of cards in hand, and you are scared of them because, like, I mean, as if you're the control deck and your opponent's double spelling and gaining massive amounts of card advantage, you're not very comfortable, to say the least.
Jim pointing out about his chat. Ross Merriam says, "Okay, your line is better." So he's rubbing that in Ross Merriam's face a little bit. Gotta love that.
Old Ross. The SCG boys.
Yeah. Jim put an upkeep stop on DrMaD's upkeep. I would assume here to deploy some of these recoils. Really nice play, utilizing the recoil's instant speed, so that if DrMaD doesn't want to counter this, they do have to use the mana on their turn.
Mm-hmm. It's just perfect, right? Yeah. Mana drain.
Interestingly enough, DrMaD will get the 3 mana from the recoil in their first main phase, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, because it's on upkeep. That's actually pretty funny. It makes the play not as good. I mean, it makes it like it's actually accelerating his mana by 1. But then it allows him to like basically play that Gideon and then hold up counter magic. Well, Gideon is 2 white, so it really depends on the land situation.
Yeah, the second recoil actually takes away DrMaD's second white. So if they do want to deploy the Gideon, they do have to deploy that Hallowed Fountain or maybe a Prairie Stream, and then deploy the Ally of Zendikar. But like you said, they're down to 1 island, right? They don't have they get to choose counter magic or they get to choose Gideon this turn.
Which is like not a super great spot, because you just know Jim has stuff in his hand and he knows how to use it. He's definitely going to try to get a lot of advantage. Somebody said, why not Prairie Stream as the target? Well, I mean, because is Prairie Stream not a fetch land?
No, Prairie Stream checks for basic lands. So this actually, I agree with Jim's bouncing of the Hollow Fountain. It forces DrMaD to take 2 damage, where the previous Jim would just came back for free. I think they were wondering because the original recoil targeted the Hollow Fountain, and then
It's
Jim
still
targeted the
more
Hollow
basic.
Fountain a second time, but because of the mana drain, it wasn't going to resolve. Oof. And we get to see Jim's been holding this Mind Twist for multiple turns and finally finds a spot to deliver the Mind Twist, which is really, really stellar here.
Yeah, that's rough.
Ooh, interesting decision point here for Jim. Do you like Catacomb Sifter or do you like Sword of Light and Shadow while the shields are down?
Well, when the shields are down, I kind of like sort of light and shadow, knowing you're going to like, you can just make a very large dude next turn.
Yeah.
3 skull clamps and a sword.
One of the interesting things to note here, Pristine Angel on the other side, for it is a 4/4 for 6 mana that has flying. When it's untapped, it has protection from all colors and from artifacts. And then when you cast an instant or sorcery, it untaps your Pristine Angel. Or maybe it's just when you play a spell, it untaps your Pristine Angel. Whenever you cast a spell. However, back then, Devoid wasn't a thing. So Catacomb Sifter actually just has no color. So it actually doesn't have protection from Catacomb Sifter, even though like you would think it would.
That's a set roulette only interaction here.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that anywhere else.
All right. Old Man of the Sea is the draw for DrMaD. Does attack with the Pristine Angel. Does play the Old Man of the Sea, untapping the Pristine Angel. And Jim with a couple of counter magic spells, but thanks to his Mind Twist, DrMaD has no cards in hand. So while they aren't blanks, they aren't stellar pickups right now.
Yeah, I mean, wrong time, but it's always good to have a little bit of a backup. You could, I mean, Disrupt could come in if, say, DrMaD top decks like a route and tries to do it at instant speed, or
yeah, that is very true.
That's pretty. I mean, it's just a little bit of extra. It's just a backup, it's extra protection.
Yeah.
Funny
here. Mm-hmm. Old Man of the Sea can't actually steal anything anymore because of all the equipment that is available to Jim.
Yeah, it's too. You call those some large lads.
Jim, I believe, trying to figure out whether it is better for him to equip this Catacomb Sifter to be able to take out both the Pristine Angel and the Old Man, or to just play another Catacomb Sifter and hold open, like you said, like Disrupt to protect against route. Do you like just like throwing the Skull Clamp on, or do you like shipping here?
I definitely like throwing the clamp on. I mean, it's got pro white, right? So the only thing you can do is the Old Man's not really. It's just gonna chump, and the Pristine Angel can't do anything.
Yeah, that is fair. All right, so Jim does get the ability from sort of Light and Shadow. Looks like he is getting back his own Old Man of the Sea. Like we were talking about earlier, his Old Man of the Sea will be bigger thanks to these Skull Clamps, and then won't be able to be stolen. So it looks like Jim is going to win the Old Man game.
The Old Man War.
Yeah, and that's what they call it when I play Magic.
You love to see it. Yeah, this just such an interesting and grindy bug deck from Jim.
Yeah.
It's got a lot more game than it might first appear. I mean, Skull Clamp does help carry when you have the ability to draw 6 cards almost whenever you feel like it for very little mana.
Yeah, I like it's interesting because like game 1, it felt like Jim really never got going, and like it felt like Jim's been in the driver's seat for this entire game. I wonder if that's just like a play draw thing, or maybe it's just like Jim's sideboard plan was like superior to DrMaD's sideboard plan. What do you think? Is it just like a play draw thing, or
we didn't really see. I mean, we saw the recoil, which was not like super effective. Like it was okay, it forced a tap out, which is awesome from DrMaD, but really it's the same. Like in the Dispel and the Disrupt are still doing what they were already. He hasn't used those, so really his main deck is still really strong. Instead of but it's good now he has the extra options. But I don't think we really saw anything from DrMaD's sideboard either. So it's almost like main deck, but Jim has his sideboard cards in the pocket, and DrMaD doesn't know that.
Yeah. Oh no, Jim with the didn't realize exactly how Old Man worked. So Old Man constantly checks for the power of the other creature. And Jim made the Old Man's power bigger than his Old Man's power, which does mean that he loses control of Old Man of the Sea. It's a card from a long time ago. It's a card from Arabian Nights, so it's kind of
yeah. We're seeing it's a set roulette only interactions here. All right, Jim's just gonna swing with one large lad.
All right, and Old Man of the Sea finally is going to jump in front of the Catacomb Sifter, realizing the interaction that Old Man has. Jim's not going to make that mistake a second time.
Fool me once.
Yeah, right. All right, the other Catacomb Sister finally gets deployed. It looks like DrMaD has a follow-up. Ooh, Absorb is really good. One of the things that can happen here is while Pristine Angel, or while I should say Jim is ahead on board, Pristine Angel does represent a pretty good clock. There's a 3-turn clock for DrMaD. So if they can find something to keep throwing in front of this Catacomb Sifter, maybe the Pristine Angel can get in a victory.
Yeah, that's actually, and also Jim is running low on time as well.
Oh yeah.
He has I think 6 minutes left in the match is what I had heard. But that doesn't seem right.
I believe that the way that they work this is that, and I'll have to wait for confirmation here. Is that because it's direct match, the timers are off. So like once they reach a certain point in the match, I believe it's 15 minutes left on somebody's clock. They have officially timed out, but I'll have to wait on confirmation on that though. All right, so Jim does get in with the Catacomb Sifter. Like you said, it is protected by the Sword of Light and Shadow, which does allow him to bring a creature back from the graveyard. He uses it to get Cooling Oracle. Ooh. Cooling Oracle draws an Elves of Deep Shadow and then quickly jumps on a Skull Clamp, which produces 2 more cards, being Cooling Oracle and Trigun Predator. And it looks like Jim, once again, here is just holding open that Disrupt to, like you said, to keep up from the route.
Well, yeah, which is great. I mean, basically Jim's like, okay, I'm going super wide. I know there's nothing you can really do, and I have a counterspell to your 1 out.
Yeah, and it looks like DrMaD agrees with you, and we're headed to game 3.
Let's see if anything happens. Play versus draw.
Yeah, I am very interested about
sideboarding.
All right, let's see if Jim wants to make any changes after seeing DrMaD's sideboard plan. Do you like anything to be changed here? Are you interested more in Old Man of the Sea, or maybe do you want Pataglia Viper again? Is there anything that you would bring in?
I'm not sure. I know. Well, Jim also did cut a land on the play. Wait, so on the play, Jim cut a land and 3 visits, which is interesting. I think maybe on the draw you want some sort of accelerant. But that could just be wrong. I mean, this format's not really figured out, so
yeah,
it's interesting to see Jim's judgment here. If he's like, okay, I want some form of accelerant, but I also hate it because it's a bad top deck. But I think one of the ways to win, especially when he's only got like 2 counter spells, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like at Dispel and Disrupt, maybe it's better to accelerate because you have Skull Clamp, you're going to have some form of card advantage, and you want to double spell every turn to try to beat the opponent's massive amount of counter magic.
Yeah, I could see that.
That
also,
could be
if you're
wrong.
DrMaD, I guess DrMaD did counterspell at 3 visits in game 1, but I was thinking if you're DrMaD, you don't want to counterspell something like 3 visits. So it does get you into that double spell, but maybe that's why they counterspelled it in game 1, is like they know that Jim needs to play 2 spells in 1 turn in order to keep up with all the counter magic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is if your opponent's also wasting like an absorb on your ramp spell, you're kind of also happy in a way.
Yeah. So
it's not really a win-win, but it's an okay situation.
Unfortunately, we didn't see exactly what DrMaD sideboarded, but I would be the Disenchant didn't make an appearance, and I wonder if maybe they boarded low on those, and then in game 3 they'll board higher on those, or maybe all of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it just goes to show Skullclamp is such a big issue.
Yeah.
Jim had massive amounts of card advantage. Like, he was beating out like Fact or Fiction levels of card advantage. Right, Jim took them all, and it was a much, much better hand. Like, that was one of those hands you look at it and you're like, I know it's wrong, but I kind of want to keep it, but I know it's wrong. And then like, you kind of have this little argument with yourself.
Yeah. All right. Jim picks up a Pataglia Viper, which is a nice little payoff, but plays a Elves of Deep Shadow.
Yeah, he's got a good ramp package here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could see something like Utopia Sprawl plus Holy Oracle this turn. Picks up Mind Twist, which is a great payoff, like, once again.
Yeah, I agree. And mostly, I guess Jim's always kind of looking for Skull Clamp, right? Like,
yeah, you don't register a card like Pataglia Viper for its power level, right? You're looking to draw some cards off of that card.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
All right, so we see the Mana Drain on a 3-mana spell. Are we going to see the Fact or Fiction? It's happened every game so far. Oh, ooh, this is 5 mana.
See.
Grand Arbiter the 4th. So for those, well, Jim's highlighting it for us. So I was going to say, for those that don't know what it does, it makes your spells cost a lot more. Your opponent's spells cost a lot more, and your spells cost a lot less, which is nice.
I mean, as a spicy one of, it's quite good.
Yeah. Well, especially since Jim is taking out like his ways to deal with it, right? There's like no bone splinters in this, so really it's just Old Man of the Sea, which we did see counterspelled the turn earlier.
Yeah, it's free. I mean, this is the Grand Arbiter is basically a free roll, and you probably know it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a great taxing effect, and you know it's a free roll, and you also all your stuff is one less, which is huge, right? So now you have just effectively have access to so many more spells in a turn.
Yeah, and going back to your point earlier, Grand Arbiter, like you were saying, like Jim really is interested in double spelling. Grand Arbiter doesn't allow that, right? Because now your 3-drops are 4-drops, so now you're double spelling on 8 mana. So
yeah, the whole curve is totally messed up.
Seen a lot more aggressive play from DrMaD this game. Like, do you think that's just like because they are on the draw, or are they just trying to push their advantage? What exactly? Why do you think that would be? Like, they're tapping out obviously on their turn 4 to deploy like an ally of Zendikar. Is it just like the card is so powerful, or is it because they're just so far ahead?
I think that they're really far ahead, and there's just like you don't really want to give Jim a chance to like start getting skull clamps and figuring a way out of this. And I think you're okay to tap out for another turn because you're just like Jim's deck kind of can't beat a 2/3 and a 2/2 to be honest.
That is fair. I guess if all of your creatures want to be clamped, that is something that's going to be tough. So Jim does play Pataglia Viper, does pay the blue so it doesn't die. And DrMaD just sitting with the Gideon ally of Zendikar, pressing that 0 button to make another 2/2. Sends a knight in. It could trade with a few creatures here, but with the Gideon ally of Zendikar just pumping him out every turn, I don't think you just like really worry about too much about losing these knight tokens. I don't think.
Yeah, I think DrMaD just saw a chance to close the door and he took it.
Yeah. So if you're in Jim's seat, is it just Skull Clamp at this point? I
think your only out is literally Skull Clamp, and that's not even gonna win you the game. It's just gonna push an advantage. But it's really like Gideon pumping out 2/2s for free is. I mean, it's very good against Jim's deck. It's actually really good. It's ridiculously good. Like it's just too hard for him to ever push through. So each turn, Jim's forced to attack it, and then. He trades with one of the guys, and then it happens again and again, and he doesn't get anywhere.
Yeah. Something interesting here, Pataglia Viper does fly, and so it is putting Gideon on a 2-turn clock. until the +1 happens here. But it is interesting to note that like Jim does have a way to connect with the Gideon if DrMaD doesn't find something like a condemn or a quarantine field or something like that. But the plus is gonna make it so that that's gonna take a little bit longer here.
Yeah, it's just rough for Jim. I think your only out is Clamp, and you're gonna have to try to protect it with this Disrupt, and it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Because your opponent has too much mana, and you can just throw out a Mind Twist, but I don't like.
You don't foresee that working too well.
Yeah, I just don't. It doesn't seem it's going to be great, and everything being cheaper means the Disrupt is so easy to pay for.
Yeah, it will be interesting here. Like you said, like the Disrupt can do something here, right? So if Jim does want to play a Mind Twist for unfortunately only no, it can be for 3. You'd be floating a blue. If they want to pay it for 3, they could, and then the blue floating here. All right, looks like unfortunately Disrupt is not going to come into play.
Yeah, it's just too easy to pay. It's too easy to pay. I mean, it's a great early tempo play if you're trying to resolve something, but the Grand Arbiter kind of, I mean, I wouldn't say the Grand Arbiter totally won the game, but it made it so hard for Jim to do anything. And never having Clamp is really rough. I think that's one of the only ways you beat a control deck like this is having Clamp.
Yeah. I mean, the card advantage from Clamp is obviously is outstanding. I'm excited to see if we're going to see a really cool interaction that I didn't think I would have saw. The Gideon +1 attack and then Karakas it back to your hand to reset its loyalty.
Uh-huh. That's actually insane. It's actually super cool. That's one of those. That's a set roulette only thing going on again. There's a set roulette special.
All right, so the play does happen. It looks like Gideon gets in, gets chump blocked, and then produces a Night Ally token, and then we see a Shocked In Hallowed Fountain followed by an Old Man of the Sea. And DrMaD not even holding up in counter magic, just deploying everything.
Well, he knows that he closed the door. There's no one spell in Jim's deck that's going to get him back into this game.
Yeah. All right, that does it for Jim this round. Unfortunately, like you said, perhaps that game felt massively different each game, which is like really crazy to me. Just being able to like Jim in game 2 got underneath all of the counter magic, and then DrMaD got to develop their mana and hold open their counter magic. And then in game 3, you just got to saw like the crazy powerfulness of getting ally of Zendikar. Looking at DrMaD's list, do you foresee them having to win the draw or win the play all the time? Or do you think it's just like good enough where they could just be like a force to be reckoned with in this tournament?
I think so. I mean, it depends on how many Skull Clamp decks they run into. Or if you're on the play versus draw to like man, well, you basically can if you're mostly worried about Skull Clamp, I think really, and like we didn't see if they brought it in, but 3 Disenchant is pretty like I think you have to bring it in if you're going against a Skull Clamp deck. You might be wrong, but
do you think there was like any? I mean, obviously they can't go back now, but do you think there was any chance that like if you were to be DrMaD and you were to play this tournament a second time, would you actually play those Disenchants main? Is that something you might be interested in?
I think you could. I mean, I think you can. I think every single deck has a target for that, give or take, basically.
Yeah.
Well, DrMaD's deck is just very well set up to deal with creatures, especially little creatures. And it's just hard. Like Gideon it's hard to ever push through damage. I mean, Pristine Angel is protection from all colors, which is, I mean, it's great. So, like, just everything that he's got going on with the quarantine field, route being able to instant, so you never have to tap out on your turn until you're ready is actually pretty powerful. Like, that's actually, I think, a very big deal.
Yeah. So looking at this, obviously, like you were saying, like there is a lot of powerful cards in the in the deck and in this format in general with like Skull Clamp and Mind Twist and stuff like that. Do you think like the Force Spikes, we didn't see that in a lot of other lists. Do you think that the Force Spikes just like are that much more important because of, like you were saying, like if they can just go, creature into Skull Clamp, maybe you can find a spot for Force Spike in there, or maybe you can even just like Force Spike the first creature?
I think that's like a node to Skull Clamp being so good is like on the draw or play, you kind of sort of want it. Yeah. Because it can get out of hand. And it's kind of like there's the decks are kind of they're pretty trim as far as mana goes. Like they're trying to use everything every turn. So there's always going to be an option to Force Spike something. So I think it's a great, just like overall include.
Yeah.
As far as like, you can nab a Force Spike or maybe you can hit a second spell, and that's totally reasonable.
So I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here, right? Obviously looking at DrMaD's list, Jim's deck is very similar to a lot of the other decks that we've seen in this format. With Jim's deck being very, very close to what everybody's playing, or like different variations, or a lot of people are playing. Do you like DrMaD's list as like a choice for the rest of the tournament? Do you think like the way they're set up puts them in the top 8 or close to it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think he's an easy contender for top 8. I mean, Absorb is great against aggro, like just to gain life, buy yourself time. Mana Drain's powerful. Opt is filtering. Fact or Fiction's almost broken. And like you just have Condemn. You just have so many ways. And plus, this is also a Mind Twist format, and you can see that he put a little node to that as well by playing Pulse of the Grid. So he has the ability to draw 2 cards, filter, and then Pulse comes back to his hand if he's been Mind Twisted, because he's going to always have less cards. So I think that he has that's a kind of a little node to that, is Mind Twist in the format is the 2 Pulse of the Grid. Is that it?
Gotcha. All right. So it looks like that's going to be it for matches this round. Sidetrack, it was awesome to hang out with you, or Carlin, I should say. It was awesome to hang out with you. I will be stepping out for this next round. Caroline will be back along with Carlin. And so I personally will see you in a few rounds, but we will see you collectively as a whole next round. So we'll be back in a few.